In a quiet suburban home, for 2-year-old children, quadruplets were about to spend the next 40 hours alone, their only company, the lifeless body of their mother, 34-year-old Sarah Keyes. This is not just a story of a murder. This is a story about what those children witnessed, and the one fleeting memory from a man who passed by the driveway that would become the key to unlocking a conspiracy no one saw coming. When police entered the Keyes' home on a Tuesday afternoon, they walked into a nightmare. Sarah, a beloved mother of 6, her 2 older children were at school, had been brutally attacked. The signs of a violent struggle were everywhere: overturned furniture, shattered glass, yet nothing of significant value was taken. This was no random burglary. The 4 toddlers, miraculously unharmed, were found in their playpen. They had been fed, their diapers had been changed. This critical detail haunted investigators. The killer had taken a moment to care for the children before fleeing. This pointed away from a stranger towards someone who perhaps felt a twisted thread of connection, or worse, guilt, with no murder weapon, no clear fingerprints, and no obvious suspects. The case froze solid. The public's fear turned to frustration. How could someone vanish after such a violent act, leaving no trace? Months later, in a desperate review of the case file, a detective circled back to a statement that seemed insignificant at the time. A gardener, working a few houses down, remembered a vehicle. It wasn't the car itself that stuck in his mind, it was the driver's behavior. A man sitting in a sedan, staring at the Keyes house for an unusually long time. The gardener, a keen observer of details, had unconsciously memorized a partial license plate. That fragment JKL was the first thread. It led to a small-time criminal named Vince Lorado, a man with a record for burglary and fraud, but no history of violence when brought in. He was arrogant, dismissive. He had an alibi for the morning of the murder. But detectives noticed something. He never asked how Sarah died. He only insisted he wasn't there. A subtle but telling distinction. The investigation into Lorado revealed a web of recent phone calls to a number registered to a disposable burner phone. And that phone had received one call, just one, in the weeks before the murder. It came from a law office in a city 200 miles away. An office that specialized in one thing: high-conflict family and custody law. This is where the case inverted. The police weren't just looking for a killer, they were following a purchase order. Vince Lorado wasn't the architect. He was a contractor. Detectives now believed Sarah Keyes was killed by a plan, not by passion. Their focus turned to Sarah's personal life. And there, buried in a decade of court records, was the root of the tragedy. Sarah's 2 oldest children were from a previous marriage. Her ex-husband, David Marsh, had fought her for custody for years. He was a wealthy, controlling man who saw Sarah's remarriage and her new family, especially the miraculous birth of the quadruplets, as both a personal betrayal and a legal weapon. He argued her home was too chaotic, that she couldn't possibly care for 6 children. Just 3 weeks before her murder, a family court judge had delivered a final, crushing blow to David Marsh's campaign. Full custody would remain with Sarah. The judge praised her as a remarkable and capable mother. For Marsh, it was the ultimate defeat. And for someone who viewed his children as possessions, defeat was an unbearable provocation. The pieces assembled into a chilling picture. Police theorized Marsh, believing he could never win in a court of law, decided to act in a shadow court of his own. Through intermediaries, and using his resources to create layers of insulation, he contacted a fixer, who then hired Vince Lorado. The motive? Not just revenge, but a cold calculus. With Sarah gone, and the new husband overwhelmed with 4 infants, the path to custody of his 2 biological children would be clear. Sarah's final act of defiance, captured in the crime scene, was her struggle. She had fought not just for her life, but for her children's future. She had died protecting the family her ex-husband sought to destroy. Confronted with the phone records, the financial trail, and the testimony of the fixer who turned state's witness, Vince Verodo's alibi crumbled. He confessed to the murder, implicating the fixer. That testimony, in turn, led to the arrest of David Marsh. At trial, the gardener's memory of the license plate was the linchpin. It was the tangible, physical connection that started the unraveling of an intangible, evil idea. David Marsh was convicted of first-degree murder and conspiracy. He is now serving their life sentence. Without parole, the quadruplets, too young to hold memories of that day, were raised by their father and their older siblings. They grew up knowing their mother was a hero who fought until her last breath. This case is a haunting reminder that evil often wears a suit, not a mask. And that justice can sometimes hinge on the smallest, most human of details: a man trimming a hedge. Who happened to look up and remember. Thanks for watching.